Good morning, I be to Dr. Pung and my fellow classmates. Today, my team and I will present about approaches to discourse analysis, specifically on conversational analysis. This team consists of 8 members, which are Amanda, Azim, Andi, Farah, Afifah, Husnina, Nurin, and Izati. Here is our outline for today's presentation, where we will explain about principles and key concepts of this approach, and then we will discuss and compare between conversational analysis and critical discourse analysis, and lastly we will illustrate this using a research that employed the particular analysis method.
Hi, I'm Izati. Before we jump into the conversational analysis, let's take a look on what conversation means. According to Sven Levick, conversation is a joint activity that requires at least 2 different persons to act cooperatively. The participatory actions are sequentially organized as there are mutual expectations about the order in which actions are supposed to occur. Conversations are locally managed, like in our daily lives conversation. There is no referee or educator who decides whether someone broke a conversational rule or not. And lastly, conversational actions are improvisational in nature. Though there might be a mutual expectation about how conversation should proceed, there are no script or no pre-planning about how a conversation will go or should go. Conversation analysis is an approach to social research that investigates the sequential organization of a talk. It is a way of accessing participants' understanding and the collaborative means of organizing and understanding the natural forms of social interaction. Principally, it is to discover how participants understand and respond to one another in their turns to talk, with a central focus on how sequences of actions are generated. It focuses on the social interactions such as the range of motion by the communicator and how they manage and arrange the order of discussion.
So next, we will talk about the principles and the highlighted key concepts of this conversation analysis.
Conversational analysis follows the cooperative principle by philosopher Paul Grice. In his article Logic and Conversation, he argued that talk exchanges were not merely a succession of disconnected remarks, but a meaningful dialogue that characterized by cooperation. He argued that speakers intend to be cooperative when they talk. This principle is the assumption that participants in a conversation normally attempt to be informative, truthful, relevant, and clear. Based on the cooperative principle by Grice, there are 4 conversational maxims that speakers and listeners use to conversationally cooperate. As for maxims of quantity, just say enough to make our contribution informative, not more than informative as to become more excessive or TMI. Just don't contribute more than necessary. As for quality, do not say things that we know to be false or lack adequate evidence with. Don't say things we don't know really well. As for the maxim of relation, make sure to make contributions relevant to the immediate conversation. And lastly, the maxim of manner, in which we have to avoid obscurity and ambiguity. Make sure to say our contributions briefly and orderly. These maxims serve as a foundation for understanding how people do and should converse. And that's it from me. I will pass to Nurin to explain the concepts in the conversational analysis.
Hi, I'm the next presenter. My name is Nurizati Bitisha. My metric number is 71120. So the first key concept in the conversational analysis is turn-taking. According to Not Quiz 2019, turn-taking is a term for the manner in which orderly conversation normally take place. Basic understanding of the term is the notion that people in a conversation take turns in speaking. In order to have a conversation, the conversationalist must therefore take turns where one speaker is speaking while the other listens, and vice versa. There is no official signal established to tell us that we have finished our turn. However, there are several cues to be considered, such as pauses, intonation, eye contact, gesture, or the implication of what was said. The turn-taking roles can be differ markedly in formal situation than in casual occasion. When it comes to the parliamentary procedure, knowing when and how to speak in your correct turn is important. It is possible for business to be conducted when the members are interrupting each other and when they are speaking out of turn on unrelated subject, especially in deliberative societies. Interrupting someone can be considered rude behavior and unfitting for people in a refined society. Structure of turn-taking or the turn-taking model explain how the participant of a conversation achieve to take turn during a conversation. The model is composed of two main components, the turn constructional component and the turn allocation component. Firstly, the turn constructional component helps to recognize when a turn ends and determine when the next speaker should take their turn. Secondly, the turn allocation component helps to determine which participant is selected next for the role of the speaker via two methods. Nomination, where the current speaker chooses the next speaker for the next turn, and self-selection, when no one is selected and the next speaker chooses themselves. Unfortunately, not all conversations adhere to the one-at-a-time rule, which then create overlap and simultaneous talk. For example, we might engage in simultaneous laughter at a joke. You do not take turns laughing when you see something funny. When you first greet someone, you might also engage in simultaneous greeting of delight. Or you might be engaging in back-channel feedback as you listen to the speaker tell a very riveting story that causes you to express emotion. Much of the research in turn-taking has looked into competitive versus cooperative overlap in conversation, such as how that affects the balance of power of those in conversation and how much bond the speaker have. In competitive overlap, researchers might look at how one person dominates a conversation or how a listener might take some power with different ways of interrupting. In cooperative overlap, a listener might ask for clarification on a point or add to conversation with further examples that support the speaker's point. This kind of overlap helps move the conversation forward and aid in communicating the full meaning to all who are listening. Now, I'm passing to the next presenter, Lina.
Thank you, Noreen. Now I will explain about adjacency pair. So in conversation analysis, an adjacency pair is composed of two terms produced by different speakers which are placed adjacently and where the second utterance is identified as related to the first utterance. An adjacency pair is actually an example of conversational turn-taking. For example, hello is expected to be met with another hello, and then an invitation is expected to be met with a reply. The word thank you is expected to be met with you are welcome, and so on. Adjacency pairs typically have three characteristics, which are they consist of two utterances. In most cases, the utterances are adjacent, where the first utterance immediately follows the second utterance. And the last characteristic is different speakers produce each utterance. So for your information, the first utterance in an adjacent pair is called a first pair part or FPP, and the response is called the second pair part or SPP. Adjacency pairs include the following patterns, which are greeting and greetings, question and answer, blame and denial, apology and acceptance, invitation and accept or reject, request and grant or reject, complaint and excuse or apology. So adjacency pairs may have preferred or dispreferred seconds. Dispreferred seconds here doesn't mean that the individual speaker has an emotional preference for one or someone, but the language itself sees the preferred second as non-problematic, meanwhile the dispreferred second as in some way might potentially liably cause offense, displeasure, or some other negative reaction on the part of the listener. So because of this, it needs conventional handling to avoid this negative reaction. Okay, now let's take the example of a polite request. So if you ask me, can you open the window please? So there are two possibilities for my answer. I can say yes or no. If I agree, I would say yes, sure. So I will be doing what you want me to do, so there will be no problem. But I also can say no. But if I say no, there is a risk of creating a negative reaction. So to prevent this negative reaction, I can use the generally an apology and explanation pattern and answer, sorry, no, I cannot open the window because it is stuck. Then the speaker might reply with an indication that she or he understands and she is not offended because of it. So here is the adjacency pair pattern with the example. Okay, so for the first pattern, we have greetings and greetings. We have a hi and another hello. And then for the second pattern is invitation and acceptance or rejection. So for example, if someone asks you, would you like to go to a concert with me? You can answer, if you accept it, you can say, sure, I would love to. Or if you reject it, you can just say, no, I'm busy. And then the third pattern is a request and granting or rejecting. So if someone asks you, can you open the window? You can grant it by saying sure, or you can reject it by saying open it yourself. And then the fourth pattern is apology and acceptance. If someone apologizes to you and asks, can you forgive me? I will definitely say yes. So the fifth pattern is complaint and excuse or apology. So if, for example, your teacher complained that you should not come to school late, then you can answer it by giving excuse, like I overslept. Or you can apologize by saying, I'm sorry, I will not do it again. And then the sixth pattern is question and answer. So for this one, the answer could be an expected answer or an unexpected answer. For example, if someone asks me today, are you fasting today? The expected answer is yes, I am fasting. But the unexpected answer would be something like, no, I forgot it was the first day of Ramadan, so I didn't fast today. And then the last pattern is blame and denial. Someone would blame me something like, I know you eat my chocolate, but I can deny and say, no, I did not. According to Levinson in 1983, these preferred seconds may also be marked by features such as hesitation. So these preferred seconds may be interpreted as giving thinking time to both participants, where the refuser will have more time to formulate the refusal, and the requester will have an early indication that a refusal is coming and giving them the chance to formulate a reply. Or it can also be interpreted as an indication that the speaker would cooperate if they could. Okay, now for example, if someone wants to borrow 10,000 ringgit from you, how would you answer the question? If I was asked that question, I would definitely hesitate to answer because I need to think really carefully before answering that question. But at the same time, I need to think how would I answer without offending the other person. Moving on, I will explain about sequence expansion. So according to Shegolov in 2007, adjacency pairs can be expanded. Adjacency pairs can be expanded by 4 categories, which are pre-expansion, which is prior to articulation of the best first pair part, and then insert expansion, which occur between the best of first pair part and the best of second pair part. And then we have post-expansion, which is a sequence that can be expanded after the completion of the best second pair part. And so for silence, there are 3 different assets that can be implied through silence. The first one is pause, which is a period of silence within a speaker's turn. The next one is gap, a period of silence between turns, and the last one is lapse, which is a period of silence with when no sequence is in progress. For example, if you want to ask your friend for lunch, you can do a pre-expansion where you ask your friend, are you doing anything this weekend? And then if your friend say no, then you can issue the invitation. And once your friend hears the invitation to lunch, your friend might want to know when and where the lunch will take place before giving you the official yes or no. So asking what time and where would be an insert expansion within the adjacency pair, since it occurs between the invitation of the first pair part and the reply of the second pair part. So, once you give an answer that it will be at the student pavilion at 2 p.m., then your friend can reply with a yes. After your friend say yes, you might then say something like, "Cool, see you there," which would count as a post-expansion since it speaks to what occurred after the invitation has been replied to.
Here is another example that you can read by yourself. So I think that's all from me today. I will pass this presentation to Azim. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Abdul Azim, and today I'm going to be presenting conversational analysis against critical discourse analysis along with one of my group mates. So the differences arise as each concept are pursued differently. The differences have to do with the fact that each has a different way of invoking context and also have a different degree of willingness for interpretation of social action. To begin with, conversational analysis reject what has been called of bucket theory of context, which argues for a more dynamic approach, which context is treated as both project and product of the participants' own actions. And also we must note that there is a slight difference between saying that the context both produced and is produced by the participants' action, which refer to critical discourse analysis, and treating context as the project and product of participants' own action, which refer to conversational analysis. Next, this form of being context shape is a much softer and more local version than the more radical context shape or produce among critical discourse analysis proponents. It insists on looking at the participants in their own terms, which are free from interpretation of what the participants are actually saying.
Thank you, Azim. My name is Amanda Christianis, metric number 72993, and I will be talking about critical discourse analysis. Unlike conversational analysis, which is more simple, critical discourse analysis focuses on social problems and especially on the role of discourse in the production and reproduction of power abuse or domination. It then sets up a relationship between language and power. Textual analysis is used to understand what and how discourse works, which should look to draw out the form and the function of the text. When adopting a textual analysis, discourse must be analyzed at various levels or several dimensions. Model of critical discourse analysis consists of 3 dimensions, and each dimension requires a different kind of analysis. The first one is text production and consumption, which involve with the description. Well, this is the difference between conversational analysis and critical discourse analysis, because conversational analysis only involves with spoken or verbally. Next, discourse practice, which involves with interpretation, and lastly, social practice, which involves with explanation. Critical discourse analysis differs from other discourse analysis methods because it offers an explanation of why and how discourse work. In the meantime, it also includes a description and interpretation of the discourse in context. Last but not least, when conversational analysis is much softer, critical discourse analysis are more bold and radical in using their social knowledge to uncover something like the ideological workings of hegemonic language practices. It investigates the way in which authority, dominance, and social inequality are constructed, reproduced, resisted in the discourse of written and spoken. Well, that's all from me. I'll pass this presentation to Abdul Azim. Thank you.
So we can simply conclude that each has a different analytic agendas and starting point, that each orientation in short is operating at a different level. And also we can think that conversational analysis is simply designed to reveal how things during questions and answer exchanges, while critical discourse analysis is designed to uncover something like the ideological language practices. So that's all from our parts.
For the next slide, we will presenting the conversational analysis used in discourse analysis. In this slide, we will be using 3 journal articles. The first journal article will be presented by Afifa, while the second journal article will be presented by Farah, and the last journal article will be presented by Andy.
As Meredith stated, conversation analysis can be used in discourse analysis. Meredith employed conversational analysis to study online interaction in this article. Research on multi-user dimensions, which is called MUDs by Cherny, was one of the first CA studies to be applied to online interaction. MUDs were the first form of online game or world, and they either had conversation as their major goal, or they may be task-oriented with members able to interact with objects in the room. Cherny concentrated on sequence organization and turn-taking, as well as a more anthropological view of the world in general. There has been a tendency for online interaction studies to be divided into asynchronous and quasi-synchronous studies. Asynchronous interactions such as newsgroup, email, and online forums involve sending messages to a server that receivers can access whenever they come back online, while participants in a quasi-synchronous conversation must be online at the same time to see the exchange of messages. This type of data has been used to study multi-party chat and one-on-one instant messaging. Research have also studied more institutional interactions such as counseling and library help services in addition to banal forms of online interaction. In turn-taking, CA is particularly interested in how turns are organized in a speech exchange system or turn-taking. It's also one of the areas where online interaction differs significantly from spoken and written discourse. Regardless of platform, investigations of online interaction indicate significant disparities between online and spoken turn-taking. The writer of a message must complete it and then send it in full. After sending a message, the speaker may switch to another participant in the interaction. Once a message is posted, it is available for any other participant in the conversation to respond to. Writers also may opt to publish many messages consecutively, thereby selecting the next turn. In extract 1, Roy appears to have selected the next speaker by using their name Pooh in the first turn. They continue to take another turn before Pooh responds here. Because no one can see what the other person is writing, there is no way for several recipients or even the original writer and a recipient to coordinate who has the right to take the next turn. It is feasible to observe that a co-participant in writing is some online platforms such as WhatsApp, Facebook, Messenger, but it remains impossible to coordinate who will complete and transmit their message first. The process of online sequence organizations has frequently focused on coherence and disrupted turn adjacency. Disrupted turn adjacency occurs when additional threads of discourse interrupt the first and second pair parts of a sequence. Unlike normal turn adjacency, disrupted turn adjacency is not perceived as related to the previous turn. In line 1, Ayla refers to Gavin's profile photo, and then in line 5, she asks him about his work in the first pair part of a question-answer adjacency pair, but Gavin's turn in line 7 to 8 is more about Ayla's remark about his profile photo than it is about the query regarding his work. In line 10, you'll find the answer to line 5, where interactional factors can lead to disrupted turn adjacency. In the first place, as previously mentioned, writers have the option to self-select their next turn or split up a turn to take several turns successively where they can have two effects. A first pair part and second pair parts may send irrelevant turns to each other since participants cannot check each other's turn. From this article, I find that conversation analysis is able to expand our understanding of human sociality because of the wide range of circumstances in which this interaction and discourse takes place.
Hi, I'm Farah Hajar and I will be explaining the next journal article, which is about conversation analysis as discourse approaches to teaching in classrooms by Shenqi and Xiatian. So, this study examines the theoretical foundations for conversational analysis and investigates the effectiveness of using a discourse approach to speaking in teaching a group of learners. Language researchers have been particularly interested in conversation because of the natural, unplanned, and everyday conversation is the most commonly occurring and universal language genre, and conversation is a speech activity in which all people can routinely engage. Conversation analysis is one of the practical tools for teaching spoken English in an EFL classroom, for example, among initiatives to discourse analysis in speaking. Conversation analysis (CA) can provide English as a foreign or second language teachers with perspectives not just on learning but also on their students' language learning processes. As CA exposure becomes more prevalent in language teacher education programs, there is a way to integrate CA with broader curricular trends in teacher development and reflection. To be specific, major aspects of conversational analysis will be looked as follows: turn taking, the turn constructional units, turn allocation mechanism, conversational styles, adjacency pairs, and repair. Next, these are the guidelines of conversation analysis in teaching spoken language in classrooms from the study. First, discussing speakers' roles and rights to turn in spoken interactions in different contexts. Second, observing and discussing how interactants get to keep and retain turns. Third, practice the language that signals one's wish to speak. Fourth, noting, predicting, and practicing the different types of turns that are likely to follow one another. Fifth, comparing norms for getting, taking, and keeping turns cross-culturally. And last one is recognizing signals that others wish to speak. Examples of activities which focus on language awareness and skills are pair work, transcribing workshop, group discussion, role play, and many more. Next, I will pass it to the next presenter.
Hi, my name is Andi Nadia Shaira. I will be explaining the third journal article, which is Conversational Analysis of Turn-Taking Behavior and Gender Differences in Multimodal Conversation. The research was done by Shazia Akbar Gilzai in 2015 to examine the gender differences with reference to the turn-taking phenomenon between male and female. The aim of the research is to provide empirical evidence regarding gender difference stereotypes. To what extent these stereotypes and assumptions are accurate. The study analyzed turn-taking in three types of conversational models: male-to-male conversation, female-to-female conversation, and in cross-sex conversation, by comparing the difference from radio, TV, and casual conversational models. The research shows that in male and female conversation, females' turn-taking rates are higher than males. Turn-taking rates in male-to-male and female-to-female pairs shows that there are no significant differences. This shows that there are gender differences in mixed-gender conversation. The findings are in line with the claims of Victoria De Francisco, 1998. She found that females have more curiosity to take turns in conversation while men stick to their own point, remain silent, and reject the offer of turn-taking. This supports the assumption that women are more talkative than men. However, the results of this research indicate that women are more likely to take turns in conversation rather than being talkative, in which it supports the proposal that women's greater turn-taking rates can be attributed to interpersonal sensitivity rather than lack of assertiveness. That's all from us. Thank you.